The dinner party that turned into a cold case. The Last Supper. If you enjoy stories that start classy and end terrifying, then buckle up, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe before the lights go out. The invitation had been printed on thick, cream-colored cardstock. Dinner at 7. Formal attire. No phones. It was signed simply, the Callaways. Everyone in town knew the Callaways, the kind of family whose name showed up on hospital wings and university buildings. So when 5 of the town's most notable people received that same mysterious invitation, they assumed it was for a charitable announcement or maybe a private business deal. By 6:45 p.m., their cars were lined up along a secluded hill road overlooking the lake. Judge Raymond Holtz, real estate developer Kim Anders, Pastor Glenn Reeves, reporter Lena Caro, and Detective Peter Doyle. The last of them to arrive was a quiet man named Henry Vale, a former chef, recently fired from the Callaway estate after a decade of service. The mansion itself glowed against the fog, its tall windows radiating gold light across the dark water. Inside, everything looked prepared for a perfect evening. Crystal glasses, a 12-foot dining table, silver cutlery so polished it could blind you. Only one thing was missing: the hosts. Mrs. Callaway's assistant, a woman named Marie, greeted them nervously. "Mr. and Mrs. Callaway are running a bit late," she said, wringing her hands. They said to start without them. None of the guests thought much of it. They poured wine, traded polite smiles, and took their seats. But 10 minutes later, the lights flickered, once, twice, before settling into a dim hum. Outside, thunder cracked across the lake. Detective Doyle noticed it first. The centerpiece, a bouquet of lilies and roses, was wilting. Beneath it, condensation formed around a small metal device, half hidden by petals. "Is that a timer?" he murmured. Before anyone could respond, the sound of a door closing echoed from the hallway. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Marie's face went pale. "They said no one else would be here." The dining room fell silent. Lena, the reporter, quietly slid her hand toward her purse, where her phone used to be, before they'd been told to lock them away in a wooden box by the door. Then, from the shadows at the end of the hall, came a voice. "I'm glad you could all make it." It was Henry Vale, the chef. His white jacket was gone, replaced by a dark coat slick with rain. He stepped forward, eyes steady. "I worked in this house for 10 years, he said. "I served every one of you. I know your secrets better than anyone else." Judge Holt stood up. "Vale, what the hell is this?" But Vale didn't answer. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Tonight," he said, "we're going to have dinner the way it should have been served." The air turned heavy. One by one, he set small, sealed envelopes in front of each guest. Their names were written in neat, deliberate ink. "Inside," he said softly, "you'll find what you've done to deserve being here." Pastor Reeves opened his first. His hand trembled. A photograph slid out, grainy, but unmistakable. His voice cracked. "Where did you get this?" Vale just smiled. "You'd be surprised what the Callaways' cameras saw after dark." Thunder roared again. The chandelier swayed above them. When the power cut out completely, the room was plunged into black. Only the faint blue flicker of lightning revealed their faces, frozen, pale, and terrified. A single sound broke the silence, the slow tick of the timer beneath the dying bouquet. And when the lights finally came back on, Henry Vale was gone. His chair stood empty, his envelope still sealed. And on the white tablecloth, smeared in red wine that looked too much like blood, were the words, "Dinner is served." The missing host. The morning after the dinner, Milford Lake was swarming with police cruisers. The Callaway Mansion, normally the kind of place featured in glossy real estate magazines, now looked like a scene from a crime drama. Yellow tape wrapped around the stone pillars, cameras flashed, and the town's small police department was already overwhelmed. Detective Peter Doyle stood outside, sipping bitter coffee from a paper cup. His hands still trembled slightly. "No one's seen Vale since last night?" he asked an officer beside him. "Nothing, sir. His car's still here, but no footprints leading to the gate." Security cameras were cut at exactly 7:21 p.m. Doyle sighed. Perfect timing. Inside, the dining room remained frozen in chaos. The spilled wine, the sealed envelopes, the dead flowers, all exactly as they had been when the generator kicked the power back on. But there was still no sign of Henry Vale, and worse, no trace of the Callaways either. Forensics had found something strange. One of the envelopes contained no photograph, no paper, just a small silver key. The tag attached read simply, Locker 19. Lena Caro, the reporter, had stayed behind despite orders to leave. "This whole thing smells wrong," she muttered, scribbling in her notebook. "A missing millionaire couple, a chef with a grudge, and 6 witnesses who won't talk." 5, Doyle corrected her. "The pastor didn't make it home last night." Lena froze. "You mean?" "They found his car this morning," Doyle said. "Driver's door open. Engine still running. No sign of him." A heavy silence filled the room. By noon, state investigators had taken over. The Callaway estate was now officially a crime scene. Yet, the strangest part was what wasn't there. No fingerprints on the envelopes except for the guests, no sign of forced entry, and no digital trace of Vale's presence past 7:20. It was as if he'd vanished mid-step. Later that afternoon, Doyle followed the only lead they had, Locker 19. The address led him to the Milford bus terminal, a half-abandoned building used more for storage than travel. Inside, rows of dusty lockers stretched against a graffiti-stained wall. Number 19 was in the middle, old, rusted, and secured with a modern padlock. "Looks like someone didn't want this opened," Doyle muttered as he broke the latch with a crowbar. Inside, there wasn't much: a stack of printed photos, a flash drive, and a newspaper clipping from 3 years earlier. The headline read, "Local teen missing after charity gala, police suspect staff error." The victim's name was Olivia Callaway, the Callaway's daughter. Doyle's stomach twisted. The official record had claimed Olivia drowned in the lake behind the mansion, an accident. But the photos told a different story. They showed her alive, frightened, standing inside what looked like a cold, tiled basement. And behind her, blurred in the corner of the frame, was a shadow that looked eerily like Henry Vale. Before Doyle could process it, his phone buzzed. It was Lena. Her voice shook through the line. "Detective, you need to come back to the mansion. Now." When he arrived, the scene was pure confusion. Officers were gathered in the study, surrounding a large television screen. The static on the display flickered, then shifted to a video feed. It was dated the night before. The footage showed the Callaways' dining room, empty except for Henry Vale, sitting alone at the table. He wasn't holding the envelopes or the wine. Instead, he was reading from a sheet of paper, voice low, deliberate. "Confession number 1, he said. "They lied about what happened to Olivia. They made me lie too. Tonight they will tell the truth, or this story will never end." The video glitched, then cut to black. Everyone in the room stared in silence. Then, from somewhere inside the house, a faint creaking echoed through the vents. A young officer whispered, "Is someone upstairs?" Doyle and Lena followed the noise up the grand staircase, their flashlights bouncing against portraits of the Callaway family. The sound grew louder, a rhythmic tapping, like metal against glass. When they reached the master bedroom, the tapping stopped. The curtains fluttered slightly from the open window. And there, on the vanity mirror, written in streaks of red lipstick, were the words, "She never left." Doyle felt a chill crawl up his spine. Lena whispered, "What does that mean?" He didn't answer. He just looked at the reflection, his own pale face illuminated by the flashlight, and realized the truth was no longer about Henry Vale. It was about who he might have been trying to protect. The truth beneath the lake. By dawn, the Callaway mansion was cordoned off again, this time under federal supervision. The media had caught wind of the story: Milford dinner party vanishing, missing hosts, dead pastor, and a chef on the run. Every outlet wanted answers. None existed. Detective Doyle hadn't slept. He stood on the back terrace of the mansion overlooking Milford Lake, the same lake where Olivia Callaway was said to have drowned 3 years earlier. The water was eerily still, gray under the morning mist. The red lipstick words still haunted him: "She never left." Lena approached, holding a file folder she'd pulled from the Calloway's office. "You should see this," she said quietly. Inside were bank records, transfers made to a Vale Catering Holdings account months after Henry Vale had been fired. Doyle frowned. They were paying him? Or paying him off, Lena said. Every month since Olivia's death. But look at this. The payment stopped exactly 1 year ago. That was the same week Vale disappeared from town. Doyle rubbed his temples. He wasn't blackmailing them, they were paying for his silence. Lena nodded grimly. And he finally stopped being quiet. But before they could say more, an officer ran up the steps. "Detective, you need to see this, now." They followed him to the boathouse at the edge of the lake. Divers had been sent down earlier that morning after sonar detected something large beneath the dock. When the first diver resurfaced, he was pale. "We found a car down there. It's the Callaways." The vehicle was pulled from the icy depths, a black Mercedes, its windshield shattered from the inside. Inside were 2 skeletons, still buckled into their seats. And in the back seat, wrapped in a plastic sheet, lay a 3rd skeleton, smaller. A child's size. Lena stepped back, hand over her mouth. "Oh my God, Olivia." But Doyle wasn't convinced. He leaned closer, studying the bones. Something didn't add up. If this car's been down there for 3 years, why does the water damage look fresh? The coroner confirmed his suspicion minutes later. These remains haven't been submerged for years. Maybe weeks. That meant someone had staged the car, recently. And then came the final piece, a small brass tag, found in the driver's seat. It read simply, Locker 19. Doyle's mind raced. He grabbed Lena's arm. That locker, it wasn't Vale's. It was theirs. They drove back to the bus terminal, hearts pounding. When they pried open Locker 19 again, this time they found something that hadn't been there before. A small flash drive, wet with lake water. Lena inserted it into her laptop. The screen flickered, then played a single video. It showed Olivia Calloway, alive, sitting in what looked like a basement. She was crying, whispering into the camera. "They said it was an accident," she said softly. "But they made me disappear. They said the town would hate us if they knew. Mr. Vale tried to help me. He told me to hide until it was safe." Then came the sound of footsteps. Olivia looked up in terror. The door creaked open, and the last face visible in the footage wasn't Vale's. It was Judge Holtz, the same man who had vanished the night of the dinner. Lena gasped. He helped them fake her death. And when Vale threatened to expose them, they staged a dinner to silence everyone, Doyle finished grimly. But Vale turned the tables. The final seconds of the video showed Henry Vale leaning into the frame beside Olivia. His expression was calm, almost peaceful. "If you're seeing this," he said, "then justice is finally being served. The truth is in the lake, and it's theirs, not mine." The footage ended. Doyle sat in silence. Everything clicked into place. The invitations, the missing guests, the strange dinner setup. Vale hadn't killed anyone. He'd exposed what the town refused to face. He looked at Lena. Henry Vale was never running from justice. He was delivering it. Later that evening, as the sun sank over Milford Lake, police divers made one final discovery, a folded note sealed in glass, buried near the dock's foundation. "They made her vanish. I made them remember. HV." The next morning, the story broke across the nation, the dinner party that solved its own murder. The Calloway empire collapsed overnight. Judge Holtz's reputation disintegrated. And somewhere, hidden from cameras and headlines, a former chef quietly watched the news, his face reflected in the glow of a diner television. He whispered one word to himself. "Justice." Then, as the screen flickered to a new headline, "Authorities still searching for Henry Vale," he smiled faintly and walked out into the fog. Because in Milford, justice had been served cold. And as Detective Doyle later told reporters, sometimes the only thing worse than a killer is the truth they leave behind. If you thought this story was wild, wait until you hear about the crime that never even happened. Hit subscribe before it disappears too.